A warm welcome to Aviation this week on Channels Television. I'm Bukola Jo Oketumbi. Low-flying civilian helicopter operations in Nigeria is receiving attention as the Nigerian Airspace Management Agency says its equipment, known as the Wide Area Multilateration, is 80% complete and is based in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital. The multilateration is a proven technology that has been in use for many decades in both navigation and surveillance, and it aims to track aircraft at any location. The Airspace Agency also hopes that this technology will help check the activities of unmanned aerial vehicles and helicopters operating in the Gulf of Guinea. Plus, see how civil aviation is transforming a city in Western China. That's Aviation this week in a bit. We take off with our background reports. Air traffic management is an aviation term encompassing all systems that assist aircraft to depart from an aerodrome, transit airspace, and land at a destination aerodrome, consisting of air traffic services including air traffic control, airspace management, and air traffic flow and capacity management. Ensuring that aircraft remain safe in the skies is not possible without navigation facilities, which falls under the purview of the Nigerian Airspace Management Agency. The increasing emphasis of modern air transport management is on interoperable and harmonized systems that allow an aircraft to operate with a minimum of performance change from one airspace to another. Air traffic control systems have traditionally been developed by individual states, concentrating on their own requirements, creating different levels of service and capability around the world.
So we have fully deployed the satellite earth stations, or the VSATs, in these 14 locations to give a complete voice communication air-ground network for Nigeria for the upper airspace, controlled in Kano and in Lagos. And this has improved significantly a pilot-controller voice communication within the upper airspace where had few challenges in the past.
Beyond the safety and management of the airspace, the Airspace Management Agency in Nigeria is also concerned with the level of piracy, oil theft, and other forms of criminal activities in the Gulf of Guinea, and is soon to complete a $12.9 million wide area multilateration project that will provide surveillance for low-flying helicopters, unmanned aerial vehicles, as well as monitoring coastal areas for ships. To deepen its activities around the Niger Delta area, transmitters and receivers are being installed by NAMA across 29 locations, with a centralized system domiciled in Port Harcourt.
And knowing the strategic nature of this sector, its strategic nature to the economy, and control them within the entire Niger Delta. So it is part of the multilateration project because we have low-flying drones and also low-flying manned aircraft or helicopters within the same sector. Most of them carrying out the same either logistics supplies or carrying out pipeline monitoring or inspections of helipads, helidecks, or also carrying out security surveillance within the Niger Delta. So they operate within the same airspace, and so this multilateration project provides us with capability for surveillance, for monitoring, for control of both manned aircraft and unmanned aircraft operating within that area.
The Airspace Agency is also incorporating unmanned aircraft tracking management system that is a surveillance and management system that detects drones, or what we refer to as remotely pilot aircraft systems, or unmanned aerial vehicle flying around the Niger Delta region. Complementing the work the NAMA is doing, the federal government has also appointed a firm to ensure that the over 200 helicopters operating on and offshore in the country pay landing fees as a means of improving its internally generated revenue in the aviation sector, as stated in the new Nigerian Airspace Management Agency Act. With this action, the federal government aims to block financial leakages, especially in international and local oil companies' operations, both onshore and offshore. To ensure that helicopter charges are remitted to the federal government, the consultant in charge, Mr. Chike Stanley, throws more light on how the federal government aims to improve its internally generated revenue in the aviation sector via this channel.
First of all, it's an international practice. So it's something that is practiced all over the world. So I was not looking at why this is not practiced in Nigeria. So these are avenues that we could use to improve our system. We're collecting landing charges for civilian helicopter movement with IOCs and LOCs. It is very, very important because it is a global practice. It is a law here in Nigeria, in Port Harcourt Airport, and we've seen it's successful. So the airlines have understood what to do, and I think they send the feedback to the IOCs back to, this is this, this is that. And at first they were not collecting the invoice. Later they now saw, this is a law, this is what it is as of today. They have started complying, so we have that good working relationship with those that land in Port Harcourt International Airport. So the test running is successful, is a good one. From there, we are now moving to the companies where these platforms are. We walked up to the system and walked up to the government to say, oh, this is what we think we could do, and we can do better. So we explained the design and everything. And he looked at it and said, no, he has to bring in the buy-in of all the stakeholders. The stakeholders came in, got their buy-ins, some disagreed, some agreed. At the end of the day, NAMA, FAN, and NCA, who contributed immensely to make sure that these leakages are filled. NAMA, we partner, collaborate with them. We're not thinking of what they do, so we're only improving on what they do to cover that lacuna and improve the navigational and radar system for helicopters. We're deploying a mobile radar. We're building a world-class control room where we can find out the day-to-day activities of these civilian helicopters. We're deploying manpower in all the locations. And doing that, it's a massive job. So then we give data on the location that they sit on. Then the next person in the other end gives data on the location you are on. So with that, we could give a good report. So we have engaged stakeholders, the security agencies, the state government. The southern governors have been wonderful. They have been accepting, they have accepted, and they have been working with us to make sure that this good innovation that has been implemented is carried out peacefully in their locality.
Aviation is the safest form of long-distance transport. In 2018, the all-accident rate measured in accidents per 1 million flights was 1.35, which was the equivalent of one accident for every 740,000 flights. This was an improvement over the overall accident rate of 1.79 for the previous 5-year period between 2013 and 2017. The 2018 fatality risk of 0.17 means that on average, a person would have to travel by air every day for over 16,500 years to experience a 100% fatal accident. Safety remains the highest priority of all involved in aviation. The shared goal is for every flight to take off and land safely. Nigeria's major air crash occurred in June 2012. In the last 6 years, Nigeria has not recorded any major accident except that of August 2020, which recorded 3 fatalities.
Aviation, you can't do without aviation. Anywhere in the world, I haven't seen one person that will say, I'd rather go by boat from London to New York than to fly. Everybody wants to fly. It's a fact. In the last 6 years, only 3 souls have died from air transportation. 3 in the last 6 years. We connect cities we connect people, we make things happen.
The crash of the naira and the hike in the cost of aviation fuel is worsening the battle for survival by domestic airlines and is raising aviation safety concerns. But some passengers here say they are confident of the nation's air safety.
Aircraft maintenance, I think most of the time is in dollars, so which is not available. So I hope they will not compromise. But what I discovered is that maybe the majority of them that has maybe 3 plane, 4 plane before, they decide maybe they drop to maybe started using 1 or 2, so that those are the ones they can maintain. That is why you discover that sometimes you started having flight delay. Maybe before they have 2 planes, maybe 1 going to Abuja, but now the same plane will move from Lagos to Port Harcourt, Port Harcourt to Abuja, Abuja back to Port Harcourt, Port Harcourt to Lagos. So, aviation industry, when it comes to standard, they are very strict. So they don't joke with standards. And even aircraft maintenance, you have procedures which they have to follow step by step. Some 100 procedures, 100 steps, 100 steps, which they have to follow. So if all those things, so they have to look, so it's not, so I have no fear, because I believe that there are standards which there are people there that ensures that those standards are followed.
If you come to situation of safety, to that regard, we can say they are improving. They are coming off now. But in some other services, these customer relations and what have you, there is a lot about things to do, and they have to check about that. You can book a flight in a particular time. You have already scheduled for your traveling and what have you, but unfortunately, it will be rescheduled again. So apart from that, there is a lot of issues pertaining where to go, there is no even direction of showing how to do this, how to do that. It's very unfortunate.
One key area that lends to aviation safety is the implementation of civil aviation regulations, and perhaps this is what led to 2 airlines temporarily shutting operations.
The economic body is wider. It's looking at the financial health of the airlines, and in doing that, you look at not just the pay slip, whether you are paid salary or not, but the moment an airline begins to own cannot pick bills, there is a signal to unhealthy financial situation, and we will carry out the economic audit. Then, of course, other things where you cannot even repair your vehicles, where you cannot pay staff at when due, is a signal. Then, of course, that will lead to carry out a safety audit. Then, of course, safety audit was actually carried out. That is now looking to the machines, looking to the personnel, whether they are trained as at when due, they get the necessary training, validation, stimulations, and every other thing. Then, of course, you come to a conclusion, which is based on facts. It's the outcome of those investigations. Then, of course, the decision is, even before it is communicated officially, it's also known to the airline what is going to come from fact, because you can't contest facts.
For an analyst, the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority has to be on top of its game this time more than ever.
Once there is suspicion that people might cut corners because of the cost of fuel, I know NCA is going to step up their oversight, and if they do that, there will still be air safety in place. Otherwise, if there is no oversight, proper oversight of the industry, everybody will want to cut corners to save money and at least declare dividends to their investors. But the industry is not like a rail line or motor vehicle. So there will be stress again on NCA too, to make sure that their eyes are wide open to the activities of airlines.
Safety recommendations derived from investigations are issued by accident investigation authorities with the intention of preventing accidents and incidents. Annex 13 requires that states shall address, when appropriate, any safety recommendations arising out of its investigations to the accident investigation authorities or other state concerned. When we return after the break, see how civil aviation is transforming China's western region. Do join us again. As the largest city in southwest China, Chongqing is located at the riverside mountains of the Yangtze River. The hilly terrain and the presence of several other similar cities spread across the western part of China makes it a natural hub for air travel. For For most people, the airline business is a cool business. Maybe it's because it involves flying in the air, getting to exotic places, but in fact, the airline industry is a hard business due to lots of maintenance and utmost attention to safety issues. Now, the airline business is an indispensable part of the real economy and bears lots of responsibility. For Hu Xianjun, founder of China Express Airlines, the responsibility of China's third largest private airline operator is supporting the common prosperity of the people in the less developed Western region.
Before the pandemic, China's regional flight market was expanding at over 20% a year. That's twice as fast as the growth for normal flights. If you consider the airline business as a traditional industry, then 20% annual growth is outstanding. In the next few years, we don't see any changes in the prospects for regional flights. That gives us immense confidence for the future.
Several years ago, Hu moved his company's headquarters to Chongqing and opened dozens of regional flights to lower-tier cities in the area. The airline's operation has grown significantly in tandem with the rapid development of the country's western region. In 2012, China Express Airlines had 5 planes, and now the number has grown to 59. 10 years ago, the company had 400 employees, and this year it has over 5,000. So it's a story of 10 years and 10 times growth. To meet the growing demand of China's regional flights, China Express Airlines has ordered 100 planes to expand its fleet, including China's homemade ARJ-21 jet. More planes will need more airport terminals to dock at. In fact, the international airport in Chongqing, one of China's top 10 busiest airports, is expanding too. Japan has opened its doors to tourists after closing them for 2.5 years due to travel restrictions sparked by the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. Visa-free travel has been reinstated for visitors from dozens of countries, bringing an end to some of the world's strictest border controls. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is hoping the move will invigorate the economy and reap some benefits from the yen slide to a 24-year low. Among the travelers arriving on a flight from Sydney were tech company executives Liam Eldon and Matthew Bothwick, who booked their flights after Kishida announced the border measures will be relaxed.
We planned the trip. We wanted to come to the trip. We wanted to go on the trip. We wanted to come to Japan, go on a beautiful tour that we're going on. It's a walking tour. So we booked it, and then I guess we kind of discovered the process. So there was a few stressful moments. We realised we needed to get a visa, and I guess some of the things that were required. It hasn't stopped us. And then the irony is that the first day that we've arrived, we didn't need any of that.
We've been very fortunate to be on one of the first flights in, I think, after the visa regulations changed. So just really excited. I think it's majorly around going to see a new culture and going to see some people who I've spent a huge amount of time with over Zoom, and getting rid of that screen and getting to see people face to face is going to be fantastic. So really looking forward to that.
Prime Minister Kishida said the government aims to attract $4.5 billion in annual tourist spending, but that goal may be too ambitious for a sector that has atrophied during the pandemic. Hotel employment slumped 22% between 2019 and 2021, according to government data. COVID restrictions in Japan also remain tighter than those in other countries. People are strongly encouraged to wear masks indoors and refrain from loud talking. The cabinet early this month approved changing hotel regulations so that they can refuse guests who do not obey infection controls during an outbreak.
It was a pure accident. We'd actually planned our trip prior to the visas not being required, so we actually do have visas, and found out after the fact. But that's fine. But we were still going to come anyway.
My flight was full. I was not expecting that. I was not even a place empty in my flight. I was shocked. So I don't know, people may be going to another country as well, but the flight was full. So I think people start to return, as soon as possible. And I think it's going to be very good for the economy, They need the tourists.
Everyone has been saying, when's Japan open next? And we've been waiting a long time to come. We have business here, not that we're doing business here, but we have business here. We've been trying to get a visa for a long time. And we've literally just been waiting ever since there was discussions of it be opening up in October. We were waiting, and as soon as the announcement came, we booked a flight, and we left Australia last night. and arrived here first thing in the morning, so it's been really smooth and really fantastic.
But Japan's decision to fully reopen appears to have stimulated some long pent-up demand. Flag carrier Japan Airlines has seen inbound bookings triple since the border easing announcement. Qantas Airlines shares are soared after the airline forecast a return to profit for the first half of the 2023 fiscal year, topping analyst estimates as demand rebounded, even as it spent money to improve operations and sweeten wages. Shares of Qantas Airways Limited soared to 13%, the biggest one-day gain in nearly 2 years, after the airline confirmed it would end its pandemic-driven streak of losses. Qantas has said it's expected to report first-half underlying profits of between $753 million and $815 million, up from a similar-sized loss the prior year. Although Qantas, like many other airlines globally, suffered from a rise in delays, cancellation and staffing issues this year as travel demand rebounded, the airline's performance is improving after it trimmed domestic capacity expansion plans and said it would invest a further $125 million in the first half to roster additional cabin crew, train new recruits and keep aircraft in reserve to reduce delays and cancellations.
A U.S. aviation company has debuted its all-electric aircraft in Washington state. The aircraft, named Alice by manufacturer Aviation Aircraft, took off down the runway at Grant County International Airport in Moses Lake, Washington, taking flight at 7:10 a.m. local time. The plane then flew for 8 minutes, reaching an altitude of 3,500 feet and peaking at 171 miles per hour, said Aviation President and CEO Gregory Davis.
The aircraft, it was just a wonderful experience for everyone who was here. We were able to witness history in the making.
According to the company, the aircraft produces no carbon emissions, significantly reduces noise, and costs a fraction to operate per flight hour compared to light jets or high-end turboprops. Davis said the company aims to find its way into the market for trips that sit between 150 and 250 miles, a range that features aircraft similar in size to Alice. It will also be for both commuter and cargo flights.
Half of the flights in all of the world are 500 nautical miles or less. And when you break that down a little bit further, what you find is that roughly 20% of all air travel is 250 nautical miles or less. In that subset of air travel, you find that the aircraft that dominate that route length are very similar in shape and size to Alice, right? So they're comparable aircraft. So what we found is that the market that we're looking at penetrating first is that, shall we say, 250 nautical mile or less market. So we're looking at developing an airplane that will fly, 1 to 2 hours, which is typical for that segment. So 150 to 250 nautical miles with reserve, and that's what we're targeting for our initial entry into service.
As being electric, the plane will require some charge on the ground as the company continues to develop and tweak its battery system. Davis said the aim is to target a 30-minute charge for an hour flight.
This is where we disembark on the program. Remember when everything seems to be against you? An airplane takes off against the wind, not with it. I'm Bukola Joe Kitumbi. See you next week.